GREENPOINT Williamsburg Public Affairs presentation. This is Neighborhoods Today.
We have a speaker here, the man that made it possible for this organization to function on the crime grant. We used it very dearly, this crime grant. Old people were getting robbed and replacements were given on locks. Let my friend, Assemblyman Joe Lentol, explain it to you. Thank you.
Just introduce me, say I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Guido. I'm not going to try and explain all of the crime prevention program tonight. Maybe we'll do it in a couple of weeks. Take a couple of weeks to give you the whole crime prevention program. But the fact of the matter is that I am very, very pleased to be able to come here tonight and join with you when Neighborhoods Today is taping this program. And we who are elected, appreciate the fact that organizations like this who make our jobs so much easier, because you become our eyes and ears and you tell us exactly who are elected what needs to be done, not only for the community, but what laws there ought to be enacted in the state of New York. And I'm pleased to tell you that since I've been elected as your assemblyman in Albany, I've risen to a position of great power, if you will. And that is to say, as my new job as of 4 years ago, as chairman of the New York Assembly Codes Committee, I've been privileged to shepherd through my committee very important crime legislation having to do with the issue of crime prevention and the issue of criminals, and trying to stop those predatory criminals from doing the violent crime that we see so prevalent on our streets today. And this year and last year in particular, we were successful in enacting many pieces of legislation which I think will go a long way in making the streets of New York safer. Many of you saw that for the first time in over 20 years, we enacted a death penalty, for example, in the state of New York. Some may agree or disagree whether we have a death penalty, but at least now we've taken the step of really coming to grips with the problem of crime and trying to put some deterrence in the law. And most would argue that the death penalty is a deterrent against murder. But we've even gone further than that. Many of you heard about the enactment of Megan's Law, for example, which we hope will go a long way in stopping those predators who would prey on little children. And it is now required by law that any time a sex offender is let out of jail, he's required to register and let the community know where he's going and what he's doing, so that he doesn't move next door to us and perhaps terrorize our children. We've also, something which I'm very proud of, we've made truth in sentencing a reality. Last year we enacted a bill, for example, which eliminates parole for the most violent offenders.
That's good.
For the really violent, second-time violent offenders, we've now eliminated parole and required definite sentences. No more of this stuff where the judge can have the leeway of a minimum and a maximum. We're going to have definite sentences where when you get 10 years, that's what you're going to do. If you get 25 years, that's how long you're going to go to jail for. That bill was enacted last year. This year, I am working particularly hard on the crime, on changing a lot of the laws on the crime of assault, because these are the crimes that affect us, these violent crimes that we want to get rid of very badly. And a quirk in the law of the state of New York is that if you commit a property crime like robbery and you don't injure anybody, you can go to jail longer than if you slashed up somebody's face. And that's nonsense. That should not be. That should not be. So the person who slashed up Marla Hanson's face, remember that case, the model? Could have gotten off with less of a sentence than somebody who snatched your pocketbook, for example. We've taken steps to change that. We've beefed up the penalties for assault in the first degree in a bill that passed under my tutelage this session. We also we have passed in the Assembly a bill that I sponsored to raise the penalty for gang assaults. Remember the Central Park jogger? Okay? Well, that should be a more serious crime. If you have a gang and you're in a gang, like a bunch of animals, and you prey on another human being, you should be subject to more penalties than the person who just punches you in the mouth on the street. That's another bill that passed. Another bill that I think is very important that I wanted to report to you tonight that's probably going to get a lot of attention in the weeks ahead. It's a new bill. It's just being drafted, and it hasn't even been put in print yet. But it came from my head, so I'm very proud of it. Nobody ever thought of this before. And I thought of it last year because of the focus on the issue of domestic violence. Domestic violence is a very serious problem in our society. And over the years, we've taken domestic violence not seriously enough. We think that, he just punched his wife around a little bit, it's okay. It's not a big deal. It's for somebody to be arrested and go to jail for that. Well, you know something? There are too many spouses who are dead that as a result of domestic violence, and I don't have to tell you about the O.J. Simpson case. You all saw it on TV. I don't have to tell you about all of the other cases that you've read about in the newspapers. And last year we did pass a very tough bill, but I don't think we've gone far enough. That bill requires mandatory arrest for somebody who is arrested, is in a domestic violence situation and assaults the spouse. So if the cops come to your house as a result of getting a call that there's a domestic dispute, and the cop sees that the woman in the house, or it could be the man, is beaten up and assaulted, he is now required to make an arrest in spite of the protestations of the spouse. No, 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 don't arrest him, it's okay. He's now required under the law to make an arrest. I believe that that still doesn't go far enough. We've got to do even more. We've started to catch up in terms of domestic violence being treated seriously by the courts. And we know that in a lot of cases the judges don't treat it so seriously, prosecutors don't treat it so seriously, the bureaucrats don't treat domestic violence seriously when reports are being made. So I've introduced a bill, and listen to this for a minute because it's really it's a little bit technical, but I think you'll get it. If you assault somebody in the state of New York and you only cause physical injury, that is, you bloody their nose, give them a black eye, that's considered assault in the third degree, where you could be charged with a misdemeanor. That's crime, but it's not a felony. It's not a felony to do that. You got to break somebody's bones or slash them up pretty good to be considered a felony. So what my bill does is say that we think that domestic violence is so bad that we're going to treat it even more harshly than the random assault that you see on the street. So if you commit the crime of assault causing only physical injury by bloodying the spouse's nose or blackening her eye, we're going to say that in a domestic violence situation, that is a felony, not a misdemeanor. It's a felony because very often the spouse has a great deal of control and domination over the situation and ought not to get away with it and be treated like it's a misdemeanor and not a serious crime. And we're going to make it a serious crime.
That's good.
And that's essentially what that bill will do if it's enacted into law. And I think it'll help the situation because the judges can no longer say, well, as we saw in Judge Duckman's case, did you break any bones? You won't have to do that with my bill. That won't have to be done.
Equivalent to that. Yeah.
This will say that it's a felony even if you just bloody your nose. You don't have to break any bones.
Right. That's good.
It's good.
So that's what that bill will accomplish. I can go on and on for an hour about the legislation that we passed, but let me end by saying that we have begun, I think, in the state of New York to really get a handle on the crime situation. We're not going to get rid of it. You know, the statistics show that crime is down. We have been blessed with a police commissioner that I think who has just left us, who has done a fantastic job in the city of New York. And we have to attack the crime problem on all fronts. It's not just the job of the police, it's the job of the legislature, it's the job, more importantly, of the citizens like you to be the eyes and ears of the police. And not only that, but to recommend to us, your elected officials, what you think needs to be done when a law isn't working or needs to be changed. And that's what your program is all about. It's about each of us helping one another. And I thank you because you've done that. And you've done that job well. And we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assemblyman Lentol. It was very well put. Very well put, and I feel that it's about time that we're moving along on people that see what's happening really in the streets in the city of New York. We got to have people like Assemblyman Lentol to stop some of these people from doing some of these things. It's disgraceful. One of our own members, Rose Palizzi, somebody acting as a plumber, conned the old woman and took everything in her possession. Things like that, Joe. My hat's off to you.
They want to get me, I'm going to be ready to get them.
They just shoot. They don't care who gets in the way.
I want to be respected. This gets me respect, know what I'm saying?
I'm afraid to walk to school. Okay?
Yeah, I might die. Everybody dies.
Kids shooting, kids getting shot. They're all victims of gun violence. The killing won't stop unless you help stop it. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT for free information. Not one more lost life. Not one more grieving family. Not one more.
I don't want to die.
Does anybody want to ask Assemblyman Lentol on some of the stuff that he told us, to ask him questions? Would anybody like to speak up? Phil Garone.
One thing that concerns me for many years, and it seems like it's an impossible thing to do, with the cop walking the beat, like we used to have it years ago. You know, that would do some deterrence, I think, you know.
Let me try to answer what I think is the reason we do or we don't have foot patrolmen. Some of it may very well be union related.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that we now have, or we have had, a system called community policing that was started by a former police commissioner that wasn't very favored by Commissioner Bratton. But we began to have what you call the neighborhood cop on the beat when this community policing idea came from the former administration. And we saw CPOP, for example, develop from that. and we had officers on not all the streets, but you still may see them on Graham Avenue.
Yeah.
You see them on Nassau Avenue in Greenpoint, for example. You still see some cops that are doing beat work. It's mostly in commercial areas where there's a chance during the day, for example, that robbery or theft may occur. And so to that limited extent, you do have it. Now, we have not, in the city of New York, begun a program of pure community policing, as I explained, because it wasn't really Bratton's, he didn't really think that highly of community policing. But in other cities, community policing has worked very well, where you have cops walking the beat, getting to know their neighbors, and I think it's probably an idea that whose time has come again, and probably will come again under some other administration.
Right.
Anybody else want?
Joe, would you
Yes,
like to
Larry.
elaborate on the Brooklyn North Narcotics Division that's here now?
Oh, sure. Many of you may have seen in the newspapers or read or seen on TV that Brooklyn North, exclusively 6 precincts, including our own, will be policed by narcotics officers. I suspect that the concentration of those narcotics officers will be in Williamsburg and in Bushwick, and not specifically here, because the narcotics problem is really bad in those places. But the fact of the matter is, this is not a TNT type of program where they go in, make an arrest, and then leave, and then the next week you're going to have drug addicts and drug pushers replace the people that they've arrested. This is going to be a continual effort on behalf, the police department says, on their behalf, where they will stay in the neighborhood and work every day at eliminating the drugs. Eliminating the drugs, going in, closing up the houses where they're sold, closing up the apartments where they're sold, and stay there. If new ones come up, they go right back at them. It's going to be a very aggressive policing that will take place by Brooklyn North, and it's going to be done under Chief Joseph Dunn of Brooklyn North, who is housed in the 9-0 precinct. Yes, sir.
Sonny, go ahead, Sonny.
Sonny?
Joe Lentol, I don't know how to put this, like, on your bill, the legislator about the, if someone gets a broken nose or just
Yeah.
bloody, and it could be a felony, right? Am I
Correct.
right? Could they serve time on something like that?
Of course.
Of course, felony, right.
Yep.
But I mean, like, I'm thinking of the O.J. Simpson case, with the bloody, battered faces, you know, in the past.
Right.
He never served any time on something like
That's
that.
right.
Now, these things lead up to killing at times,
Sure.
which probably did. Now, could that, in other words, if they're held on as a felony, they serve time, of course.
Sonny, the whole
That
idea...
lead up to...
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The whole idea of this kind of an approach is that we, as a society, have not taken this kind of crime seriously. So what does that mean? If we don't take it seriously, he just punched her around a little bit. If we don't take it seriously, the judges don't take it seriously, the prosecutors don't take it seriously, the bureaucrats don't take it seriously when you have child abuse. It took Lisa Izquierdo dying in order for them to take, and that's domestic violence too, child abuse. And my bill applies to child abuse as well. If you physically injure a child, it's a felony under my bill. It's the same thing as domestic violence. And what this bill is about is to say to the general public that we are making a public policy statement in the state of New York. No longer is the random assault where you go down the street and somebody assaults you. It's going to be more serious if you commit domestic violence, when you're in a family situation where you have domination and control over that person and you can continuously do it. We're going to say that kind of crime is not only as serious as the random assault, we're going to treat it more seriously. So what do you think about that? take notice, Mr. Judge, Mr. Prosecutor. Don't treat this as a misdemeanor or as a mere violation. You got to treat it as a felony.
That's good, that's good.
All right.
Stop beating my
Guido.
wife up.
Guido, let him ask some questions on the environment. Okay?
Who's going to ask?
You gonna ask?
One of the things also that I might bring to your attention is we have, environmental problems. As a matter of fact, we have environmental crimes. We have environmental crimes going on right in our neighborhood. And some of them are committed by citizens, and some of them are committed by government, allowing situations to exist for so long, polluting the atmosphere, polluting our water. And we in Albany, and I say me because I've introduced a truckload of legislation to deal with some of those environmental problems. But one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, because it does relate to the environment, is that the City of New York is seriously considering eliminating the sanitation police. Now, what these sanitation police are the enforcement, not the sanitation guys who write the summonses for cleaning your sidewalk. That's not the police I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guys who go out and catch the bad guys illegally dumping, polluting, okay? Dumping in the sewers, their oil, or whatever they're dumping. And because of budgetary constraints, the sanitation department wants to eliminate these guys and put them back on the garbage truck. And I think that's a crime, because the New York City Police Department isn't going to enforce the law. And we know that in our area especially, we are very vulnerable to the kind of illegal dumping that goes on in the city of New York. There are a lot of lots around, there's a lot of factories that are, a lot of yards that people come and put tires and put their own garbage. And we need cops on the case that are specifically trained to deal with that kind of thing. And that's a real environmental hazard in our area that we can't let occur. And I've spoken to some of the sanitation cops, and I'm prepared to introduce a bill if it's required in order to fight the mayor on doing this. But I wanted to bring it to your attention because it seems like it's only a little thing, but it could be a big thing in our neighborhood.
Now, before I finish talking, Joe Lentol has a previous engagement. He has to leave right now. And thank you. Thank you for
I want to
everything.
thank all of you for your attention. Been very good listeners.
Take a picture, wait. Let somebody take it.
I would like all my friends to be there. I want my mother to be there. My hair's gonna be done so beautiful. A lot of music, a nice blue dress. I want to be beautiful for every single person that goes there. If I got shot, I want to have a nice funeral.
Every day, 10 children are killed by gunfire. Help stop the violence. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT for free information. Not one more lost life. Not one more grieving family. Not one more.
Okay, I would like just to say that the Block Association is in its 18th year. We started in 1978. We had some problems in the community, and through the help and assistance of the San Sabino Society, we were able to use this facility at 206 Wither Street. So we really have to thank the San Sabino Society and the president here, Larry Cirillo, he is our treasurer and he's been with us for many years, but we really are very thankful to that society. They really live up to what they are, to help the community. They're a fraternal organization, but they do stretch out and they do help citizens such as we, and we appreciate that, and we want to take the opportunity to thank you, Larry, and the San Sabino Society. So just getting back to our early roots, we started many years ago with many complaints in the community. We wanted to improve the quality of life, and we did begin with the methadone facility housed at the old GREENPOINT Hospital, where we were having many problems. where people were hanging out in front of the hospital selling methadone, and there were many complaints about people loitering. So that was one issue where we were able to reduce the figure by a third at the old Board of Estimate. And then, when that problem was resolved and the methadone center finally closed its doors, the hospital then began to vacate because the old Woodhull Hospital, actually the Woodhull Hospital's doors were going to open, I believe in '82. The old Greenpoint Hospital closed its doors. So we began with the Greenpoint Hospital Task Force. Again, we finished with one dilemma, and our organization then pursued to work for the betterment of the old Greenpoint Hospital, because we had vacated buildings then, because the hospital closed its doors in late '82.
Thank you, Tish Cianciata, Vice President. And I also want to thank the people for the second time, Neighborhoods Today, for coming into our community. We need people like this organization to come in to help us. And by them helping us, people out in the field can see that Neighborhoods Today is here today and is here forever and will be here forever. Thank you.
Okay.